Ferrari's 2023 F1 season is their most important year, and they have all to play for. It will either be a complete bust or exactly how they want it. And what gives me these ideas? For the most part, there's speculation on whether the actual team principal there is going to work. Is the team going to work? Will the car genuinely have that reliability improvement that it's saying it's going to have? Or will it be a complete bust and kind of end like how their 2022 season did, with their car falling off in comparison to first place? They kept their quali pace throughout the year, which was good, but quali pace only gets you so far if you can't actually win at the race. Obviously, you need a car that competes in both. Look at Aston Martin, had no quali pace, so they always had to make it up in the race. Had good strategy, that usually brought them back, and they had good tire management. Ferrari lost that tire management, they lost that race pace, but they had the strongest car, I think, in the beginning of the year. Probably the first maybe 8-9 races. I feel like around Baku's range, after that race, they fell off, and I think they couldn't compete with Red Bull anymore in the races, but Leclerc was leading in Baku up until the explosion. So it comes to show you that on a track where they weren't really suited to be the strongest car because of the straight line speed, they still came back and competed really well. Throughout the season though, this was becoming more and more apparent that the car was falling off. I feel like Silverstone was a good track to actually show you that the car was falling off. Sure, Leclerc could have won, Sainz ended up winning, but if Verstappen was in that race, I would say Verstappen would have won that race by seconds ahead. He was already catching Sainz. Leclerc was close to Sainz, but wasn't catching Sainz at the pace that Verstappen was. It was going to be tricky. It would be very tricky for them to actually win Silverstone, which should have been a track that they should have dominated in, but did not. If 2023 continues like how 2022 did, this car will not perform well against the others. Every team is improving, every team is working on its reliability, and most teams were actually pretty reliable throughout the 2022 season. The only cars that weren't reliable were the Ferrari-powered cars. The Haas car had its faults, was probably the most reliable out of the Ferrari-powered cars. Alfa Romeo, tragic. Ferrari, tragic. That power unit was just a complete bust, and apparently they have added 20 to 30 more horsepower on the already added in the beginning of the season that they were ahead by 7 to 8 horsepower on an engine that was tuned down a lot to actually keep up with the reliability. They fixed it that much to where it's actually reliable, 30 horsepower ahead. I don't know. We'll have to definitely see like which direction they're going in with this power unit, because sure, if they make a complete rocket ship and win 5 races with DNF 15, it's not really worth it. Kind of like what did end up happening in 2022 races. They were able to actually keep up with that Red Bull car, but only when the engine was turned up all the way, but their tires were getting gashed. So there's a lot to work on with this car, and I feel very skeptical of Matteo actually end up leaving the team. Kicked out, but leaving. What this does for them, and how Frederick is going to take over now with the help over there at more car development side. Clearly, Alfa Romeo didn't develop a good car. They made a good car, they didn't develop a good car. So it interests me to see how Frederick is going to take care of this. So that's what I mean by bust, or it'll be an amazing season, because if they win, this could put them on a track to be winners into the next years and the next years and the next years. But if they bust this year, it could be a big problem, and the team will have genuine problems actually working together to get itself back to the top. They've always been stuck around this, like, I would say 3rd to 2nd to 4th place, whatever 2020 was, but I'm talking more of like in the recent years, how they've been fighting for podiums, but not really wins. They were fighting for wins this year and really showed that they can build a great car. Well, Matteo would definitely show that. Matteo showed that they improved from 2020, what was a tragic year, to 2021, 2022. The engine was great. Haas is excited for the engine. And funny enough, what actually gave me the idea for this video was Haas and both Ferrari are the only 2 F1 teams that have announced so far that their chassis is actually built and has been tested. So they're already confident with the chassis, which I think it was a great chassis. It looked different than the others, but it performed extremely great and it looks beautiful. So I'm glad they're keeping it. And actually, I think there's a picture of how the 2023 car is actually supposed to look and what are the rumored reports. They kind of brought back the like Coke bottle shape towards the back of it because the back was a little fatter than I needed to be. And they brought the side pods a little bit more in and kind of did what Red Bull has with that like lower, I don't really know what that's called, but on the side pod, how they have the lower part that's extends further than the actual higher part. So they did that to the car, and I'll put up a picture of that. I think the car is called a 625. I don't know where they get all these names from, but it's Ferrari. What do you expect from them? Everything's weird there. Everything's weird, but done elegantly because it is Ferrari, and you gotta love the team regardless whether they're weird or not. A bust for Ferrari would mean that all the hard work that they put into 2022 won't translate over to what is going to be now 2023, 2024, 2025. They brought in a new team principal. The strategy team is clearly bad there. It could be a really bad recipe for disaster if stuff doesn't kind of, I feel like, work in a lucky manner between how the team performs and how they work well together. Frederick's really got to step in there, and I think he is the guy that can kind of put that team together because they felt pretty divided through the year. I don't know if you guys remember, but when Carlos won in Silverstone, practically half of Charles Leclerc's garage didn't come out to celebrate with them. If you see the amount of people that were on the fence celebrating for Carlos, it was very, very little amounts of people. And if you see when Leclerc wins, how many people celebrate with Leclerc, it's a complete difference. Now that doesn't have much to do with do they like Sainz or not. It has more to do with the team and the strategy and how a driver who could potentially win the championship wasn't focused on a driver who, sure, won his first race, but it didn't really benefit Leclerc in any type of way of Sainz winning that and putting him on the better strategy rather than Leclerc on the actual better strategy and pitting him. There was clearly a divide there. Frederick's got to put that team back together, make sure they're all working together, that they can actually bring this 2022 car to the amazing Ferrari expectations that we expect, because a bust for them would be not winning the championship. In my personal opinion, they should be competing for the championship in 2023, and it should be a win for them. That would be what is set out for them and what their goal is. That goal is out there, and it's extremely attainable by that team. They were the closest with Red Bull, and they were competing with Red Bull for most of the year. I say most because there were some tracks that they were awful on, like Mexico, and it didn't really seem like they were that close on tracks like Japan was another one of those bad tracks. Japan and Mexico were really the tracks that I can kind of think of on the top of my head. For most of the tracks, though, they were pretty close. USA kind of felt like they were pretty far apart, too. But guess what? Carlos Sainz put it on pole. Regardless, I'm blabbering on about their pace. I'm talking about how the team needs to encompass themselves and how they need to actually perform to be able to get to their 2023 goal, which is winning the championship. So that's what I mean by bust, or they gain what they've been wanting to do for the amount of years since Michael ended up winning a championship they have not won yet. It'll almost be 20 years by 2023 if they do win in 2023. I'm more on the fence of it's going to be a bust, but it could be successful, and I'm going to talk about why I think it could be successful because of the attributes that Frederick brings. He could bring that team together. We could really see a great pairing of Charles and Sainz, and I do firmly believe, I think that one driver should be prioritized in the championship after maybe like 7-8 races. Like if it's, let's say they're close all 7-8 races, don't prioritize them. See who's winning the next couple maybe, and then prioritize that driver. But don't at the beginning of the season also be like, listen, it's Leclerc. If you're first, we're switching on the very last lap regardless, even if first and second or whatever it may be. That shouldn't be the case, but they should prioritize him quicker than per se they were towards the end of the season. I mean, Sainz didn't even give Leclerc the Brazil position, even though it didn't really benefit Sainz in any type of way for him to take third, while Leclerc could have taken third and had a bigger lead onto Checo. I mean, it brings some weird awareness to me how they were performing with the team. I think Frederick will take that away and make sure that there is one driver, if need be, and they will prioritize that driver for the win. Now, the car development side, I do believe they have a strong team there. I do believe that they can actually make that work. They had an awesome engine. Their chassis was great. They just need to put it, they really just need to put 2 and 2 together, fix those tires, and they have themselves a championship winning car. It just relies on, can they put that all together? So, bust or successful? What do you guys think? Will Ferrari do what they set out to do, or will they perform poorly? Let me know in the comments. Please leave a like, subscribe. It would mean the world. And peace.